voicemails because we're not even on that.
I mean, we know what the vibe would be anyway. It's not something that
No
we're feeling.
voicemails. No voicemails. No voicemails.
Even in these times, still got to be the positive energy podcast because I know. I mean, it's all doom and gloom, right? All of
No,
it is
it's
at this
not.
point.
It seems pretty bad if you read all the comments and on Instagram and the replies. It seems all bad, but it's not. And I'm the type to spin things in a positive way all the time. I turned the page yesterday, and there's a silver lining in all of this, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. And let's get this thing started. Talking Nets, episode 112. Let me make sure my mic is recording on my end. Does it sound good? It does. All right, let's do this. Talking Nets, episode 112. Man, what do we say? What do I say? That's it. This is the end of season pod. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Talking Nets. We're going to hit you with some news and narratives. We're going to go around the association. We're going to briefly talk about Game 7. We'll read some reviews. We'll send our thank yous out, and we'll close this thing. Talking Nets, episode 112. Let's get it. All right. Counting us back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Talking Nets, episode 112. Everybody, welcome back. Keith McPherson and Hudson Flynn joining you on Monday, June 21st, to close this thing, to put a cap on this season, to reflect a little bit, talk about Game 7 a little bit, send out some thank yous to all of you who have supported us from the jump, some that jumped in halfway, some that jumped in this season. We appreciate you all. Hudson Flynn, can you say hello to the people?
Hello, everybody. Man, what a year. What a season it's been. Obviously, ended a little earlier than we wanted it to. But it's like Keith said, what can we say but thank you? And we're not going to bring the doom and gloom on this podcast. It's really easy to. Yesterday, not the best day I've ever had, but we got a rebound, and we're Nets fans, right? We've been here before. We know what it's like to lose. So we're going to have to bring that positive energy, and the Talking Nets podcast will not spend all of this summer, all of this offseason, all of this podcast bringing that negative energy. We're going to do what we can to put a positive spin on things, to keep ourselves afloat, to keep the positive energy flowing. So let's get into it, Keith.
Let's do it. I mean, we'll start off right away with news and narratives. And we got to start off with our guy, Spencer Dinwiddie, declining his option. Did that surprise you, Hudson? It didn't surprise me. Spencer didn't get back on the court as we all were hoping. We damn sure could have used him. I was saying June. It might have been in the Eastern Conference Finals. It might have been in the finals, but we didn't get there. I saw you put out a tweet. The hits keep coming right after the season ends and we lose like that. There's a chance that we lose Spencer Dinwiddie, who was my favorite net for a few years and a guy that I was really rooting for and hoping could come back and rejoin this team. What are your thoughts about Spencer Dinwiddie declining his option?
So obviously, like I said, the hits keep coming. It was unfortunate that, that news was going to have to break the day after we lost, whatever. If we were to lose this season, it was going to have to come the day after we got eliminated because the deadline is really quick. And here it is. The hits keep coming, but it was fully expected. It does not mean that he will not be returning to the Nets. It just means that he wants, honestly, the money that he deserves. It was a $12.3 million option, and he's seeking something in the range of $20 million a year. And at the same time, he's not going to be the starting point guard on this Nets team, right? We have 2 all-NBA point guards, and he's just not going to have the same role that, honestly, I think that he deserves and could have on another team, being that starting point guard. So who knows where it's going to go? We'll keep you updated on things, how they happen. But this was expected, but it does not mean that the Nets are completely out of the running. The Nets have his bird rights. They have the ability to go over the cap to sign him. So if they do want to, if they want to make that move, if they want to bring Spence back, if they want to run it back one more time, give him that last season with the Nets that he deserved, they can still do it. So it's just going to come down to how the money is allocated this offseason. But don't cry too many tears for Spence leaving yet, because he could still be a Brooklyn Net, because I know he does want to be. He has said in the past that he does want to stay in Brooklyn. He loves it in Brooklyn. But it's going to come down to the money and him getting the money that he has earned and that he deserves.
I think Spencer Dinwiddie can be a starter in this league, and if he goes and gets paid, good for him. I'm very interested to see what the market is like for him. And if there isn't a high demand for him coming off an injury, a knee, then maybe he does end up back in Brooklyn. And I'd love to see that, because we absolutely could have used him. We absolutely needed him in these playoffs. We could have used him coming off the bench. We didn't have much of a bench. So good luck to Spencer with everything. And, we'll see what happens. Time will tell. The next news and narratives subject that I have to bring into this podcast is Sean Marks not winning GM of the year. We thought that was a lock. We thought that was in the bag. We talked about, obviously, the trade of the century, getting James Harden. That's the Finesser of the Year award, getting that trade done. And then when you go and get Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge, and don't forget that Jeff Green was on the vet minimum. And then let's even go further back. He got KD and Kyrie to come this way. He helped us build this thing from the Kenny days to the Nash days. I mean, shit, even, getting Steve Nash to come and be the head coach. Now, I know a lot of y'all don't like Steve Nash, but that's still a GM front office move. And Sean Marks doesn't win GM of the year. I said why I thought it was because, James Jones, was it who won?
It was. I think his name is James Jones from the Phoenix
James
Suns.
Jones.
Yeah.
James Jones won from the Suns. And that's what I said. I said the Suns are still in and the Nets are not. So they got to give it to the GM who's put together this team. He got Chris Paul, Jamison Crowder, and those guys are in the Western Conference Finals, looking like they're going to go to the NBA Finals. And I also said the NBA don't love us. We love Sean Marks. We love the Nets. We think this is all great. The NBA is looking at us like, oh, super team. Can't wait to see that super team fail. What are your thoughts on Sean Marks not winning GM of the year? And maybe he never does at this point.
Yeah, maybe he never does. If you're going to pull off a heist like the Nets did to get James Harden and don't win it, then it looks like it's probably going to be pretty difficult to win it at all. And we saw the news came out yesterday, right? And that was the day after the Nets got eliminated. So had the Nets stayed in it, had they won that game, had KD's foot been an inch further back, probably a different story, maybe a different story, who knows? But it's a shame because what I'm seeing a lot of is Nets fans crucifying Sean Marks. And I don't really know. I'm not in the gatekeeping business. I'm not in the mindset where I'm going to say who's a Nets fan and who's not. But I don't think you quite understand basketball too much if you think that what happened to the Nets this year and the way that we lost was Sean Marks' fault somehow. And we had a person, and I'll just address his points because he put them pretty coherently, a Nets fan who said it was Sean Marks' fault for giving Joe Harris all that money. That's why he didn't win. It was Sean Marks' fault for not having more depth and not being better prepared for injuries. That's Sean Marks' fault. And it was Sean Marks' fault for not getting more centers. And the only question I have in my mind is, did you see what the Nets looked like when they were healthy? Like, we built this team around superstars and we had 1.5 of them.
Man,
I just don't, I don't think, like, I understand James Jones winning it. And I do think that he deserved it, right? He definitely deserves it. In a normal year, he would have been the runaway with what the Suns are doing. But to have Nets fans saying that this was somehow Sean Marks' fault when there are so many other glaring reasons that the Nets, bowed out and Sean Marks didn't win Executive of the Year, it just seems a little off to me, and it's not the vibe that I like.
Yeah, I don't know. I just saw someone in the chat. Why bro always in a headband? That's my swag, duh. Like, that's just how I get off. My bad if you have to question that. But back to James Jones winning GM of the year, former player, former champion. That's who they wanted to give it to. And Sean Marks can't be blamed for injuries. Sean Marks can't be blamed for, people will twist narratives, and there's a lot of narratives swirling around in our fan base. Our fan base has changed through this season. Our fan base changed this year, and it's like, You get some new people, some, dare I say, casuals with their takes, and they don't really speak for all of the Nets world, but people are going to say what they want, what they think, whether it's, true, whether they have a basis for it or not. So let's move on. The next news and narratives topic is KD will play for Team USA this summer. If you thought Kevin Durant was looking for a rest or looking to chill, if you thought that Achilles heel was going to, get iced up over the next 4 months, no, KD wants to play, and it's clear KD wants to play. He's a hooper, man. That's what he does. And he put out a post on his Instagram with him and Kobe in their Team USA uniform. So what are your thoughts about KD saying, yeah, I'll lead the country's team. I'll step up and play for Team USA for sure.
I love it, both from a Kevin Durant perspective. I'm excited to be able to keep watching him. That's going to be awesome. I mean, watching him it's a cathartic experience that we all just enjoyed this past series. But at the same time, I think it's good. He's going to be out there with top level talent for a lot of the summer. And that's different from the normal, off-season Drew League workouts, pickup games that players normally get involved in. This is, even if it's not against the toppest of tiers of competition, just because the U.S. is so much better than everybody else, it's still going to be high-level basketball. He's still going to be playing on the same team as high-level basketball players. And I think it's both going to be great to watch from a Nets fan perspective, but also it's going to put the Nets in a great spot, or at least a better spot, because as we've seen, you can't come back from a long layoff and think that you're going to be able to go 100%, even if there isn't injury situation. So that's something that I'm looking forward to, both, to enjoy as a basketball fan, but also I do think it's going to make a little bit of a difference when it comes to how the Nets start next year and what they're going to be able to do and how much of a runway we're going to have to really get up to our top speed with everyone healed and, all these new changes being made. So I'm, on two fronts, I'm really happy about it, honestly.
Yeah, I wonder if Joe Harris is going to play in Team USA. He was in the mix. Maybe he should. Let's go around the association and look at the rest of the league. It's funny, before we came on, Hudson and I were talking about, what's next for us? Are we going to do a podcast once a week, twice a week? Are we going to talk about the rest of the NBA? I was like, shit, we could turn this bitch into talking basketball real fast. I know Hudson knows, and I know exactly what's going on in the league and players and situations and scenarios enough to have a once a week podcast on it, but stay tuned for that. And around the association last night, it warmed my heart to see Trae Young, Kevin Huerter.
To see Kevin Huerter first name on the list. Kevin Huerter is the first name on that list.
Absolutely. That's guy repping hard. The Terps, Maryland, Red Mamba, Red Velvet. Oh my glob. He was going in last night. You love to see it because Trae was cold for a little while, but then he was super cold. Ice Trae, the gang. Burr. Wow. I love to see that. After everybody wanted to, try and rain on the Nets parade, which, honestly, Saturday night, there was a lot of goofies in New York that root for the Icks and the Madison Squares that were trying to dance on our grave, and it didn't even feel right. It was you guys are doing too much. Your jokes aren't hitting. You realize the Nets went down without Kyrie, with half of James Harden, and you're dancing on our graves oh, this is the biggest failure ever. Okay. Around the association, I think the number one seed losing game 7 at home to the 5th seed, that's a bigger collapse. Ice Trae, the gang, closer. Those guys did what they had to do in that game to win game 7 and advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. So we got Hawks versus Bucks Wednesday, Eastern Conference Finals. And yesterday in game 1, Devin Booker, ridiculous. Chris Paul didn't even have to play. They handled business against the Clippers in game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Hudson, what are you thinking about last night's game with your boy Red Velvet and the Hawks? Let's go there, and then we can touch on the Eastern Conference Finals and the Western Conference Finals.
I'll tell you, not much could have made my day and my basketball viewing experience much better yesterday after the Nets loss. But seeing the 76ers just absolutely implode to my guy, Kevin Huerter, and the Hawks was just, it was beautiful. It was one of my favorite basketball viewing experiences, really just from a pure cynicism point, to see Ben Simmons, the player that was completely, not involved in any type of James Harden trade. That no, we would never trade Ben Simmons. In fact, let's give him almost a $200 million contract. Put up, what was it, like 6 points? And then the last game he had 5 points. And I think he had like 7 points in the game before that.
And nothing in the fourth. Strange.
Looking like a future Shanghai Shark, honestly, is what I saw from that. And they still have 4 more years of this big contract. It's crazy to see. It's fun to see. I love it. And it's just showing what this season is really about. It's about kind of turning everything on its head. The Hawks came in, they were horrendous. They fired their head coach, and then they just turned it around completely. They walked through the Knicks, and then now they're into the Eastern Conference Finals, and they've got a lot of momentum. And like I said about the Nets, I would be worried if I'm the Bucks playing them. That is a team that gets hot from 3 and does not get cold in the way that the Nets stayed cold pretty much all 7 games except for the first 2. The Hawks don't do that. The Hawks have shooters, so I am really looking forward to that. And man, what can you say about Devin Booker that hasn't already been said? I remember listening this offseason to shows like First Take, The Jump, all that, talking about how he's just a loser. He's a perennial loser. He doesn't have the winning mentality. And they're already trying to paint him in that lens that you've seen, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie get painted into, which is something that we're very familiar with. And he's just shutting all of them up. And as much as I wish the Nets were in it to play them in the finals, I think that the Suns are just gonna run through the rest of the league. I really do. They're showing no signs of slowing down. And I'm very excited to watch them play because Devin Booker is just on another level. He is a transcendent talent in, honestly, a similar way to the way KD is a transcendent talent, where whenever he takes a shot, you're genuinely shocked that it doesn't go in, right? Whenever he makes a pass, you're genuinely shocked if it's not pinpoint accuracy. And look, as sad as it is that the Nets are out, and I'm usually not a fan of being emotionally stable enough to watch the playoffs after my team is eliminated, especially like the Nets were, I'm going to be watching the Suns, and I'm going to be watching the Hawks because I think a Hawks-Suns finals would be amazing. I think that would be prime time TV like we've never seen before, honestly.
That's who I've got. I'm rooting for the Suns. I'm rooting for the Hawks to get to the finals. I think they can. It's like small market, right? Like, this is a year for the NBA that there's parity. Like, there's actually parity in the NBA. This is a year for the NBA that LeBron isn't going to the finals. Steph isn't going to the finals. KD isn't going to the finals. I was talking on these past few episodes about how Giannis is the international golden child. They need to keep him in it. And, I don't think he's going to get through the Hawks. I think the Hawks can match up against them. They're younger. They're faster. Like you said, they can shoot better. So I'm rooting for the Hawks to actually get it done and for the city of Atlanta to get there. They're a small market. They're not as small as like a Phoenix or a Wisconsin. But then the only like big market team is LA, and they're the secondary team in LA, and they don't have Kawhi. I don't think they're going to have enough to do it. I think CP3 is going to come back, and the Suns get to the finals and win it. And I would love that to happen for a small market team, for a guy like Devin Booker, a guy like CP3, Jamison Crowder, a guy that bounced around from different teams, was traded. And, the stories are writing themselves. And what else do I got about, around the association? I wanted to point out the fact that Philly chanted, "We want Brooklyn." We heard that infamous "We want Brooklyn" chant from Philly, Boston, and New York. All got smoked, all got eliminated. Now, sorry, Philly fans. Sorry that we couldn't meet you in the Eastern Conference Finals since you wanted Brooklyn, but you didn't hold up your end of the bargain either. And I'm interested to see what the ratings are, right? Because last year with the bubble, they talked about the ratings being down, and now more and more we're seeing that the bubble was like definitely some weird kind of basketball. These playoffs have been great. These playoffs have been ridiculous, actually. Very exciting, very competitive. I'm interested to see what the ratings are for the Eastern Conference Finals, the Western Conference Finals, and the NBA Finals. I'm hoping that they're up. I feel like people are turning. My wife, she wasn't huge on the NBA. She wasn't a big NBA fan, but through this season, she's like really into it now because the stories are compelling and everybody's on edge watching these games, and it's been real fun. So let's quickly go into the one game that we have to talk about, Game 7. I know it's going to be reopening some wounds for you guys, but we weren't going to pod Saturday night after the game. I didn't get home till like 2:30 in the morning, And then we weren't going to pot on Father's Day. So here we are, Game 7. I got to go to Game 7. Shout out to the Brooklyn Nets. Shout out to Jesse Lawrence. Shout out to, Talking Nets for getting me in the building. It was amazing. That was the best seats I ever had. That was the best seats I ever had for a playoff game. The atmosphere was incredible. A lot of famous people in there, celebrities, a lot of energy in the building. We had it at plenty points. We had it at plenty times, but we just couldn't get it done. I want to get this out of the way, Hudson. Let's talk about Joe Harris. I'll say my piece on Joe Harris, and I'll start with this. Joe Harris is our guy. Joe Harris is a guy that we gave 4 years, $75 million to. He went cold, and it hurt me to see Joe go cold like that. We needed him. We absolutely needed him in this series. And if he had, just an average game for himself throughout, we might have been the difference. There were some close games that the difference was only 3 points, and if we had Joe Harris at just his regular season, Joe Harris shooting percentage, we would have been fine. I think I saw a stat that Giannis shot better in this series from 3 than Joe Harris, and that's just disgusting. I don't even know how that happens. But for you guys that are saying trade Joe Harris, I'm gonna burn his jersey. He's a bum. He doesn't belong in this team. The story is gonna write itself for this Nets team, right? And I don't know how much NBA history you guys know or follow, but a lot of these teams that make it to the championship and finally make it to the mountaintop, they have off seasons like we're going to have, where you think about how your season ended and how you failed and what you didn't do. And it starts to make you, Jordan had a tough go at it his first few years in the playoffs before he figured out, I got to lift weights. I got to train. I got to bring my teammates with me to lift weights and train in the offseason so we can get better and take that step. We got to be more physical. We got to be more aggressive. Joe Harris, he went back to Cleveland. Joe Harris, the guy that nobody wanted, the guy that nobody saw being an NBA player. He kind of reverted back to that in this series, but I think this offseason he's going to work even harder, and he's going to come back. And next year in the playoffs, he's going to be consistent and solid for us, and he's going to erase what we saw this year. Hudson, what do you think about number 12, Mr. Joe Harris, Joey Buckets?
Here's the thing, right? I think it all comes back to the real reason that the Nets couldn't win that series, and that was because injuries, honestly. I really do. I really do think that's why. And because of those injuries, because we had 1.5 superstars, really, you had to have Joe on this pedestal. You needed Joe to, elevate himself to probably a point that he wasn't comfortable with, and you needed that. We needed him. He was really what was, not the difference between the Nets winning and losing, not the stage being too big. I think obviously you wanted him to play better, but the Nets needed him to play in that expanded role that maybe he's not comfortable with, and maybe he didn't enjoy the lack of spacing. And I think it really does all come back to the fact that we didn't have Kyrie out there, we didn't have James Harden out there, and the way that they make all of the stars around them so much better is something that really can't be discounted. And it's unfortunate to see all this hate for Joe, because he is a really great guy. He's a nice guy. He does a lot of good work. But you also have to remember that this was really Joe's first time on this type of a stage, right?
Yeah.
This was it. I mean, what, you want to go back to Virginia days in the tournament? This was the first time that this man from Killeen, Washington, ever had to go on this stage. And sometimes the lights get too bright. Sometimes he gets in his own head. And, being a shooter is such a cerebral experience, right? You have to be able to forget the last shot you take and to keep the hot streaks going. And we just didn't see it. So on one hand, I get it. I think that Nash should have given Joe a lesser role. I think Nash should have tried out Landry Shamet, should have given Jeff Green some more minutes, should have even gone big at sometimes and took out one of our shooters and put in Clax for more defensive help. I think that is something that you can have a criticism with. But at the end of the day, it's tough to put all of the criticism on Joe when all of these other things happened surround it that put him in a situation where he really couldn't win. You could have met expectations or done poorly, right? The Nets winning that series is meeting expectations, and losing it is doing poorly. So it's just a tough situation to be in. But no, I don't agree with the trade Joe Harris talks. I really do not. Honestly, we haven't seen how this team functions in a full season of normal basketball. Next season, all full stadiums, all fans, all the time. It's going to be different. It's going to be a different experience. I'm sure that's a big jump to go from 5,000 fans like me and Keith were at when the Big Three came back against the Bulls to, full stadiums with everyone chanting your name. And it's a change. And I think that we're going to see next season, definitely by the trade deadline. If you want to talk then, we can talk then. But I think by that time, we'll see what this team is really made of, what this team is really like. And if, like we always used to say, if Broadway Joe is ready for the bright lights.
Yeah, man. I feel bad. I called him Broadway Joe. I'm done with that nickname because now it makes no sense to call him Broadway Joe. But where did it stem from? Where did I get that from? From watching Joe Harris in the fourth quarter in regular season games show up and make a steal, or be fundamental Joe and drive and make a layup, or just be Joey Buckets and hit a three, bang, late in the game. Broadway Joe, ready for the bright lights of New York City. But he wasn't. And like Hudson said, we went to a regular season game where there was a couple thousand people. It is a complete different atmosphere from the regular season game we went to see to what Game 7 was. You go from like a couple people in the Barclays Center in that like living room setting. They got rid of the living room setting. And it's like now you have multiple thousands of people on top of you, like waving towels, yelling, like it's complete different atmosphere. And, it sucks that Joe Harris couldn't step up and rise to the occasion, but I think he will. I think we'll get another chance next year and he can rewrite his story. He can erase this. And this is the type of stuff that motivates guys to work harder. This is the type of stuff that, guys will lose sleep over, like Joe Harris, and he will grind it out to be better. He's in a 4-year, $75 million contract. He's our guy. We're not trading him. He went missing. He had a bad performance and we end up losing, but you can't blame it all on him. Let's move on to another topic, man. And when I say you can't blame it all on him, what I really just was stuck thinking about after this game was like how much we actually miss Kyrie. Low key, I hate Giannis now from this series. Like his game is one thing. I hate watching him just run through the lane, get every call. They called a tech on Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown had his hand on the ball. I'm like, this is ridiculous. He gets to shoot free throws with 13 seconds. And his game is just garbage. You see him get ISO'd. He's got nothing in his bag. But I hate Giannis because of the Kyrie injury. He gave Kyrie nowhere to land, whether it was intentional or not. We end up losing Kyrie in game 4 after losing Harden in game 1. And without Kyrie's point production, without Kyrie's skill set, and without him on the court as just an emotional, spiritual leader, we were affected. And in the season, whenever Kyrie was out, I think I said on the podcast, usually Joe goes off when Kyrie's out. And that didn't happen. We needed Joe to rise and he didn't have it. The stage was too big. And what did you think about Kyrie? All right, so we lost this series. And I was having a conversation with someone yesterday. I was saying, listen, we lost this series and I'm okay with it because we would have limped into the Eastern Conference Finals. And if we would have lost in the Eastern Conference Finals, or if we would have advanced to the finals and lost, we would have been hurt. We would have been limping into those series. Harden with a grade 2 hamstring strain, not himself, not having his full game to his advantage, couldn't drive, couldn't get his legs under his shots. You could tell he was hurt. And then not having Kyrie, even seeing Kyrie in the stadium, he was kind of gingerly walking around. Kyrie might not have been able to go in the Eastern Conference Finals till game 4 or 5. So what were you thinking about the impact of losing Kyrie Irving in game 4?
It's huge. It's clear that he is a spiritual leader on this team, right? It's clear the impact that he has, the way that his players, on the other players in the team talk about him, the way that, the way that they look at him when he was on the sideline in game 7 as a leader, it was just on another level with him. And it's so sad to see, a guy like that, our only all NBA player on this team, go down like that, and for him to not really have control over it. It wasn't a basketball injury, right? I get it. If you go back to Kevin Durant's Achilles injury, you see him get that injury, just non-contact going in for a drive. His Achilles couldn't handle it. If you go back and you look at what happened to Spencer Dinwiddie, that terrible injury, it looked like it was in the flow of the game, but this was something that didn't need to happen. So I can't even imagine how crushing it really must have been for the team. And the impact on the basketball court is something else, because we saw James Harden go down. We essentially didn't have James Harden for this entire series, maybe for 56 seconds or whatever it was in the first game. And we saw Kyrie and KD lead the Nets to 2-0 and lead the Nets to what looked like was going to be a series sweep until he went down. And it was just on a different level when Kyrie and KD were playing. And that really brings me to the next thing that I want to say. You know, we're saying thank you to all of the fans, all the listeners, all the people that supported us. I just have to say thank you to Kevin Durant. I have never seen basketball played like that in my entire life. Kevin Durant, in the last 3 games, and of course one of them went to overtime, he played 53 minutes, only took 8 minutes of basketball off. 8 minutes in those 3 games. And for him to do what he did was just otherworldly. It was ungodly. It was one of the most spectacular shows of athletic, dominance I've ever seen in my entire life. And to see him, go and hug his mother after he couldn't hit the shot at the end of overtime, it crushed me, because he gave us everything. He was our only guy, right? James Harden did what he could, and all credit to him for, toughing it out and being out there to help and do whatever he can. But Kevin Durant was that guy. He didn't really have the secondary players. Blake was good. You got to give credit to Blake for being a hustle guy. Same thing with Bruce. Bruce had a great game 7 too. But at the end of the day, it was Kevin Durant first, second, and third. And with all of that attention focused on him, with all those double and triple teams that he got, and all of the, linebacker style of play that PJ Tucker was giving him, he went out there and showed everyone why he's the best in the world. And he did it all for the Nets. He did it all for the city. And the fact that anyone would have even a drop of a thought of criticism about Kevin Durant in their mind for what happened to the Nets this season, it's really beyond me. And what he did this season should have its own wing in the NBA, in the Basketball Hall of Fame. It was just otherworldly, and I've never seen anything like it. And all I can say is thank you to Kevin Durant.
KD will never say it, because he's about winning. He's about trophies. He's about getting to the finish line. He'll never come out and say anything about his performance, but I'll say it. That was ridiculous. Putting a team on your back, showing that you are the best player in the world when the whole world is watching. The whole world knew who was shooting the ball. In the arena, we all knew it was just KD. There was really no other option, and he's still hitting the shots. Ball is life, and life is a game of inches. My man was an inch away from ending the Bucks season. He probably has a size 18 shoe. If he had a size 15 shoe, maybe he hits that.
You want to hear what's worse? I hate to cut you off. There was a story that someone found. He wears a size 18, even though he's a size 17, because he likes to be able to slide his shoes on and off.
Wow. And that's the difference, right? That's the difference. That's how close we were. I was talking to my wife about it. Someone in the chat a couple weeks ago, they said the universe isn't ready for this big 3. And I'm a universe guy, and I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, maybe that's true. Maybe this first year post-pandemic, 2021, maybe the universe wasn't ready for this big 3, because we could not keep these 3 guys on the court together healthy. We just couldn't. How many games did they play healthy? All 3 of these guys at 100%. Not many. So the universe might not have been ready for it, and that's fine. But like I said, this is going to be the story. And now I want to, transition a little bit away from, the game and that stuff, but talking more about this team and this fan base, and thanking you guys that listen to Talking Nets, that subscribe to this YouTube channel, that subscribe to the podcast, followed us on Instagram, Twitter, bought the merch. People that came up to me in the stadium, in the arena, like, I've been doing this stuff in the Yankee world for some time now, but like I just never really thought about it for the Nets. And it's crazy to see, like I said, people wearing our merch in the stadium, people coming up asking, where's Hudson? People coming up, yo, Talking Nets, I listen to your podcast. And this was all just an idea. This was all just a dream. This was all just something that Hudson and I really worked on to make happen, and you guys made it happen. And I feel like we actually won through this season. Yeah, we lost. We didn't get to the championship. There ain't going to be no parade. It's disappointing. It was crushing. I'm walking out of the Barclays Center with my head down like, damn, that's not it. But then after I had some time to think about it, I'm like, Talking Nets was really born in this culture. Yeah, we existed in 2019, 2020, but this 2021 Nets World season is when, we came to really the light, and I can't thank the Yes Network enough for helping us out. Media Squared for the feature they did on us. The Brooklyn Nets ticket office, my guy Riley, who's my ticket rep, and just everybody that I connected with. I won't go through all names, but even seeing my face in the Brooklyn Nets thank you video, that got to me, man. I'm on the train home, and there's a lot of emotions and anxiety and feelings going into Game 7, and then when you lose, it's like this rush of like negative energy, and you're just sad. And I was trying to find the positives and not get emotional, but then my boy sent me the video, and it's a thank you to the fans, and they show the Barclays Center like walking through the arena or walking through the tunnel, and the first face I see is me like turn it up with the Talking Nets headband, and I shed a little thug tear. I was like, that's crazy. Like, the Nets rock with us, man. Like, they put me in the video with a Talking Nets headband, and it just shows like, you put in the work, you could do anything. And we just are so thankful to have this community around the Brooklyn Nets now, and we're not done. We're nowhere near done. Like, my whole thing is that in 4 months, the next season is going to start. How can we use this 4 months to improve Talking Nets? I got some ideas. I know Hudson's got some ideas, and I just wanted to use this opportunity to say thank you to everyone that downloaded, subscribed, that wrote a review. We'll read 2 reviews in a minute and close this thing out. And I got to thank Hudson Flynn, man. Hudson Flynn, from the time we met to now, so much has changed. But, I trusted him. He trusted me. And every day we worked on this brand. We worked on this podcast. Hudson ran the Twitter. And, last year in the bubble, we were kind of alternating games and stuff. And I kind of just stepped out of the way going into this year because I wanted him to really own it. I wanted him to really have a chunk of this brand. And, man, he killed it. We've got 13,000 followers on Twitter. And I went from really like watching him do his thing to just being like, he's got it. And, obviously I produce the pod and I run the Instagram, and then I put our clips from in the stadium out there. And, our merch, all of our shirts came from, my ideas. And then our graphic designer at John Boy Media, Matt, brought them to life. And, you guys bought those shirts, and it's awesome to see like, ideas become things. And, yeah, that's all I got. Thank you, Hudson. I'll give you the floor to say your thanks and your final pieces as we end this end of season pod, and thank everybody in the Nets world.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I echo everything that Keith said, but what I'll say is just a little story, right? So after the Nets lost, after, the season ended, I sent out a couple of, thank you for rocking with us this season tweets, and, those got a good response, obviously, but I just kind of sat there refreshing Twitter, seeing what other people had to say about the Nets, looking for the company that misery loves, but I couldn't do it for too long, and it was late. So I was like, you know what? I got to stop myself from doing this. I got to practice some self-care. And I deleted Twitter for the night. I was like, I can do this tomorrow morning, but let me go to bed without having to keep refreshing Twitter. And I did that. And then I woke up the next morning, and after a night of seeing, all of these Knicks fans and Celtics fans and whoever's fans, even Sixers fans before what happened to them happened, dancing on our graves, pulling up our old tweets where I said, the Nets are going to win the championship. I mean, I don't know what else I'm supposed to say. That was the expectation.
We are going to win, just not this year.
Yeah. And seeing all of that hate, I was like, I was so done with it. I was so done with, the Twitter that I worked on so hard all season. But I woke up, and to just see all of the positive messages we got, from people on Nets Twitter was, it really did mean a lot. And it means a lot that people listen to this podcast. It means a lot that people follow us on Twitter, because at the end of the day, we're nothing special. We're just two Nets fans, right? We're just two guys that like to talk about the Nets, that like to, enjoy this Nets season. And we wanted to enjoy it with you guys, and to see all of the support that we had. It was really something special. And just know, like Keith said, this offseason, we have a ton of plans. We're not going to stop with the content. We have lots of ideas for guests, lots of ideas for things to do, lots of ideas for things to talk about. And then next season, it's going to hit a different level. It's going to be different. We worked out all of the kinks this season. So next season, Talking Nets is going to level up to its final form, and just be excited, because I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it, and stay tuned, because we have a lot of big things coming this summer and a lot of big things coming next season. So thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Talking Nets, a fanalist pod. We're not analysts. We're just fanalists, aka we're just fans of this. And you guys gave us an opportunity to be the fans that were your voice, to narrate this season for you, and that helped elevate us. And we're gonna put the work in and help you pass this next 4 months until opening night at Barclays Center. And stay tuned. We're gonna take a little bit of a break, I guess, just for our own mental space, and a little bit of a break from, the grind of every day covering the Nets and thinking about what to talk about on the pod and where to be and what to do and, answering emails and who to work with. And, man, shout out to Tailgate too. Shout out to my boy Jared at Tailgate for letting us do 3 live events at Tailgate. We did a live podcast in February in the freezing cold before anyone was doing anything outside. When people were stuck inside, scared of COVID still, we were like, yeah, we'll pull up and do a show. And all of that helped build this. All of that helped, us connect with fans and people. And shout out to you. If I physically met you in the Barclays Center, I shook your hand, or if you just said what's up to me, I appreciate that. You don't know how much I appreciate that. Like I said, I've been doing this, podcasting and content creation in the Yankee world for a while. And I know a lot of Yankee fans have come into Talking Nets and seen, how, we talk about Brooklyn and this culture around the Nets, and we've made some new fans this year. So this is just the beginning. We'll be back, and I'll read 2 reviews, and we'll close this thing out. So Wednesday, Nikki D123 baby writes, best Nets podcast, baby, 5 stars. Let's go Nets. The Slim Reaper came to play, and Scary Hours is back, baby. This is the best Nets podcast around, and only getting better. Real Nets fans, great fanalist, great times. They keep it real. Can't wait to listen through the finals, baby. Brooklyn. I'm sad. We are not going to the finals. The podcast will not end. Like I said, we will take a break so we can kind of, meet and strategize and recalibrate for the offseason. But like I said, this could be talking basketball. We could literally come through here and talk about the rest of the playoffs. And then when the NBA season actually ends, we'll bring some guests in. And we'll start, looking at different options and different things on how to cover the Nets through the offseason. One more review. Last review came in Friday from Racemeister. Best pod in the game. 5 stars. I can listen to these guys all day long. They know what it takes to be the best. And the work they put in only makes it better to listen to. Positive vibes only. Absolutely love it. Keep it up, fellas. Brooklyn. Positive energy, Like I said, we're going to put a positive spin on everything. The Brooklyn Nets now have 4 months to get healthy. I would bet you that James Harden wants to get in the best shape of his life. I bet you he wants to get rid of that hamstring injury and be ready to rock. Kevin Durant already said, I'm going to go play for Team USA. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to go right back in the season. Kyrie Irving, we missed out on Kyrie Irving's Mamba mentality in the playoffs. We missed out on Kyrie growing his Kobe fro and giving us flashes of Kobe Bryant in the playoffs. We missed out on it. We got a little bit in the Celtics series. We got a small bit in the Milwaukee series, but we missed out on it. Kyrie will be back with a vengeance. Joe Harris cannot wait to get back into another season so he can shake this. As soon as game 1 comes and he lights it up, or game 2, he shakes this, and then he'll get another opportunity in the playoffs to redeem himself next year. And most importantly, Steve Nash is not a rookie head coach anymore. Sean Marks will improve this team. We will fix our holes. We will get better. We will sign free agents. We will draft. We will figure out what to do to strengthen this Nets team so that we are better, so that we have a better bench, so that we have a supporting cast. Where Katie said it's the Big 15, it was not a Big 15. But maybe going into the 2021-22 season, it's more of a Big 15. So that's all we've got. Hudson Flynn, you got anything else to add? Anything else before we wrap up episode 112 Talking Nets?
Stay tuned. Big things coming.
Yeah, stay tuned. Appreciate y'all, man. This thing could have failed. This thing could have been over with plenty times from October 2019 to now. And we didn't let it die. We didn't let anyone stop us. We didn't let anyone tell us there's no Nets fans. Who's going to listen to a Nets podcast? Oh, the Nets fans are just bandwagons. You never actually build anything for the Nets. Well, I think that was wrong, and I think we proved a lot of people wrong, and we're here for you guys. We're not going anywhere. Talking Nets will be back bigger, better, and stronger. So make sure you subscribe, rate, and review the pod. If this is your first time listening to the pod, sorry you're late, but go back and listen to some old episodes, and we'll be back with some new episodes soon. We didn't play any voicemails. I just didn't feel like it was the right episode to put voicemails from people's reactions after the game. We've turned the page on that, but if you want to leave a voicemail in the future, it's 201-870-0461. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and subscribe to the YouTube. It's just at Talking Nets. You can find us on those platforms. And the t-shirts are still for sale. That nicknames t-shirt will forever commemorate this squad and this team. Promo code playoffs get you 20% off. Shop.johnboymedia.com. Look up podcast merch, Talking Nets. And that's all we've got. You guys will see me on Twitter. Hudson don't really tweet that much from his account, but 90% of the tweets from Talking Nets are Hudson tweeting. So you'll see him there. And I'll be at Yankee Stadium. I'll be doing my Yankee stuff. And then as soon as October rolls back around, we will be firing up the Let's Go Nets chants. And you already know where you can find me. We'll be at Barclays Center and we'll be everywhere that Nets fans are. So let's close this out with the Let's Go Nets. Let's go Nets. Brooklyn. And that's the pod. 45 minutes.
That's the season.
That's the pod and the season. Man, applause for everyone involved, everyone that helped, everyone that's in the chat, everyone that checked on us, people that DM'd us after the game. You know, there's a lot of goofies and a lot of haters that, like I said, they tried to dance on the Nets' grave, and it was like, it wasn't even valid. It's like, wait, you want to say they have a big three and the big three failed? Kyrie wasn't on the floor. Harden was half on the floor. KD showed up in a historic way. You know, they want to say, oh, you guys built I saw a tweet that the one tweet that got off for Knicks fans was the Nets built a super team to advance one round further than the Knicks. And I'm like, okay, that's how you spun it. You guys got gentlemen swept in the first round. You won one playoff game. We won 7 playoff games. You know, like, I'm not comparing to the Knicks, but like I was looking at all those holes. I keep seeing the name Saddiq Bey pop up in the chat. I saw someone earlier was like, should the Nets have kept Saddiq Bey?
We never had Saddiq Bey. That's just not how trades work, actually. We never actually had him on the team.
He was never actually a Brooklyn Net. And no,
the Pistons made that pick. We didn't make that pick.
Landry Shamet is going to be a very solid player for us. Do not judge Landry Shamet off of this year, which he had some good things this year, but he's going to grow. He's only 24, just turned 24 this year. And he's going to grow with this team and guys like Kyrie as a mentor and KD and some of these other guys. And he's a shooter. He's going to get better. He's going to get more comfortable being in Brooklyn, being in New York. And we're going to be able to rely on him coming off the bench. Saddiq Bey, like, I don't know why you guys think Saddiq Bey would have been the answer as a rookie in these playoffs. Like, I don't think he would have came in and just lit it up.
He's a good player. He's a good player. But, like, the Nets, if the Nets kept that pick, we probably weren't even going to draft Saddiq Bey. Because that's just not how, like, I think people get confused because they're used to the way like NFL and NHL draft pick trades work, where it's like you trade the pick and then they take the player. Like, that's normal, right? But when you see it in the NBA, it's listed as the Nets make the pick, right? It's the same thing. It's just like a semantics kind of situation. We never had Saddiq Bey. He was as much of a crapshoot as anybody that we could have drafted. And I don't know. There's some goofy energy in the chat. Someone said the Hawks might be better than the Nets. They're not. The Nets are just hurt. And stop talking about Chris Chiozza. Like, what? Like, Chris Chiozza and Tyler Johnson have nothing to do with what's going on with the Nets. They just don't. Like,
they are end of the bench guys that, like we said, we didn't have much of a bench because we traded what we don't, why do we have to keep going through this? Chris Chiozza and Tyler Johnson are non-factors. They did play. They did get some minutes, but like, they're not a reason that we would have won or lost. Like, you guys are looking at the wrong things. Looking at the end of the bench, like, yeah, when you trade your stars to get a James Harden, you get these kind of like scrap heap guys, bottom, of the league guys. Like, think about how many 10-day contracts this Nets team had. I always go back to the fact that we were trying to get Norvel Pell, Noah Vonleh, Andre Roberson, Iman Shumpert. Like, we were trying to get those type of guys involved. It was always built for the big three to get us there or not. It was big three or bust. And when you don't have the big three healthy, then you bust. Pause. Like you're not gonna make it with just KD. And KD literally tried to put us on our back and almost willed us there. His foot was on the line a half an inch. It's a game of inches. Ball is life. You can learn a lot about your life looking at basketball. It's that close sometimes. You could be the best. You could be going crazy and still come up short. So it was built for James Harden, Kyrie, and KD to carry us to the finals and to the championship. Harden got hurt Harden had the hamstring going into the playoffs. Like, you guys forgot that, right? They were holding him out, and we were fighting for that 2 seed, and we were like, we need James Harden. Harden's hamstring, it bothered him for months, and then it got reactivated in the highest level of competition. I guarantee you he works with the medical team and trainers to strengthen his legs, strengthen his hamstring, so that doesn't happen again. This is story building. This is, I told people a while ago, we're dynasty building. Now, a dynasty starts with a championship, but it doesn't always start with a championship. You got to lose to know how to win. When these guys go through this type of experience together, it drives them. It motivates them. The Nets will be back, and this is not a one-year thing. Like, this is for the next few years. And then after we win a championship next year and the year after, then it's forever. It's cemented. And I promise you, we'll be right here to talk about it, and we'll be right here to cover it. And like, this is not done. This is just the first chapter. I talk about the championship DVD. This isn't a champion. This is going to be used in the championship DVD. They're going to talk about how bad Joe Harris was, and Joe Harris will have an opportunity to redeem himself later on. They're going to talk about Kyrie missing time. I think Kyrie's going to come back and kill next year. He just had a son. He's about to spend this time with his baby boy and be even more motivated to come back and kill. Harden knows, man. Like, give it time. This is the type of stuff you're going to see on NBA TV in 10 years. Like, the Brooklyn Nets big three came together in 2020, 2021. They didn't get it done, but they worked all offseason together. They trained all offseason to get better. And then the GM, Sean Marks, in the front office improved this team, bringing in little pieces. You think, like, okay, people were talking about DeAndre Jordan too. That's how I also knew, like, I'm like, you guys didn't watch much of the regular season. DeAndre Jordan would not have been a factor to change the outcome of this series. People kept saying, oh, why don't we play DeAndre Jordan? Why is DeAndre Jordan on the bench? He didn't get a minute in any game of the playoffs against the Celtics or the Bucks. So that tells you all you need to know. Hudson?
Yeah, no, it's whatever. I don't know. Not much left. Like, there's no point left in diagnosing, these things that like you could, like, trading, like, even playing DeAndre Jordan, that's not going to make a change. Trading Chris Chiozza for no one's picking up Chris Chiozza. Like, it's not, those things aren't what made this team or lost this team the series, right? We lost because of injuries, and we lost because we, didn't have the right guys to be able to step up when we were injured, right? So it comes down to that. If you want to find a reason, if you want to diagnose a reason, if you need someone to blame, I don't know, blame the basketball gods. Even this is more of a stretch. I guess the Nets medical staff, I don't care. Like, it was
the universe wasn't ready for
it was just bad luck. Sometimes you flip a coin and it loses,
What did I say on the pod, Hudson? I said, I pray for health, because that's the only thing that can derail us. When we're fully healthy, we're unstoppable. I prayed for health, and God said, nah, I think this is the year for the small market guys to get there. I think this is the year for somebody else to get a ring. You've got guys on your team like Kyrie and KD that have a ring. I think this is the year for CP3 and the small market Phoenix Suns to get there, the Wisconsin Milwaukee Bucks to get there, the Atlanta Hawks and Trae Young, not one all-star on that team. Maybe they get there. The Clippers, which I don't think the Clippers get there without Kawhi, but could you imagine if Paul George wills the Clippers to their first NBA finals? Like, those storylines are out there. The universe was not ready for this big three to come together.
And we have our own storylines this year. Like, next season, think about how many individual MVP seasons we had. There was a time where Kyrie was in the MVP discussion. There was a time when KD was the leading MVP vote getter. There was a time when James Harden was the leading MVP vote getter. It was for sure Harden, right? Oh my fucking God. I'm going to ban this guy, Edward Huang. I don't know if we can do that from the chat. We should have traded for Drew Holiday instead of Harden. You got the attention you wanted. Congratulations.
I just put him in timeout. It's whatever. That's what I said. Like, the thing about Nets fans now, it's like, And also why I think
It's not the
Hudson
Nets
and
fan. There's no way.
no,
There's no way.
Hudson and I have done well because like real Nets fans obviously know that we have been watching the Nets for some time now, and we would never say some of those things. And then new Nets fans are like educated by our takes and the way we see the team and things that we never say. Like sometimes, like honestly, bro, some things that I read on Nets Twitter and even in our own chats, I'm like, are these people watching the same thing I'm watching? Are they watching the same team? And then, you know, obviously our fans, this is the best year to be a Nets fan. Our fans got to beat their chests and got to actually be good this year, you know, as a 2 seed. But then reality hits that like, yo, we're not used to being on the main stage like this. And now, you know, the Nets world has changed forever. Like now we should get used to being at the top. Maybe next year we go into the East as the 1 seed and we walk right through the playoffs. But some of y'all got to just use Google. I said to Hudson, I'm like, not only are these new Nets fans like new bandwagon Nets fans, they don't even research the history. Like you can go back and Google. This is a homework assignment for you new Nets fans over the next 4 months. Go back and just Google the last 10 years. When we get back to the Barclays Center in October, it'll be the 10-year anniversary since the Nets came to Brooklyn. I'm not telling you you need to know everything about the New Jersey Nets, but at least know the history in Brooklyn. Like it's not that long to go back and figure it out.
You just Google it. It's so simple. Oh my God. I don't know. I'm glad we're ending this season on at least a little bit of a fun note. I don't know. Bring back Bruce. Bring back Jeff. Bring back Blake. Do whatever we can. I have faith in Sean Marks. We're going to be back. Off season's going to be a fun time. Make your mock trades. Get the trade machine working. Get your mock drafts running. The Nets have like 1,000 draft picks in this draft for reasons I could never explain to you because of Sean Marks being the best executive in the league. Those are going to probably get traded for a player.
James Harden.
Yeah, just look forward to it. Honestly, the offseason's a fun time in the NBA, right? It's a good time. It's the time that brought us, you know, Kevin Durant. It's the time that brought us Kyrie Irving. It's the time that really was the start of the James Harden rumors to the Nets. Look forward to it. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Keith's looking forward to it. Let's go Nets.
Let's go Nets. I also thought about this too, because like some writer on Nets Daily is going to write about it. When you lose Spencer Dinwiddie in December, it starts. And LeBron came out and talked about, oh, I knew this was going to happen. You know, you start the season, shortest off season ever. Guys are going to get hurt. But the whole league dealt with injuries. The whole league was hurt. The whole league lost guys. Like the Nuggets lost Jamal Murray. You're not getting there without Jamal Murray. The Lakers lost AD. You're not getting there without AD. Like the Nets lost Spencer. Then we also lost LaMarcus Aldridge to a heart condition. Like how random is that? Like that's why I was saying like the universe was not ready for the Nets to actually be this like juggernaut that we wanted them to be. But we can be that in the future, and the future is bright for us at Talking Nets and us as Nets fans. So we'll see you guys soon. Thanks again for watching. Give us like a week to take off, like a little break. I wish I could go to Cancun right now, but we'll be back. And
Cancun's nice. Don't hate on Cancun.
No, I never hate on Cancun. Cancun's awesome. Like I literally do wish I could dip to Cancun. NBA season's over. It's a nice place. But what we're going to do, Hudson and I are going to meet. We're going to regroup. We're going to strategize. We're going to plan. And when we know the plan, we'll come back and tell you guys the plan. And we're not stopping. We're not taking off more than a week. Like it's Monday. Shit, for all I know, we could have a podcast out later this week or within the week and next Monday. So we'll see you guys soon. Thanks again. Later.